Shane or Rick.
liberos in a second, then it's going to be behind the attack line. And the purpose for that is mainly just because for a regular sub, you have to check in with the official. For a libero, then you can come in, and there are a couple rules, but almost any time you want.
It's not working.
Okay. So the game balls we're going to be using are the Molten V5M5000. Most of you guys have probably seen this. I know that's for sure for the men's. Did we decide on the women's?
The women have a different ball, but
It's the K1 Wilson silver. It's the high silver. It's just softer for a little bit.
yeah. So the women's is a little bit different, but this is for the men.
Yeah, so this is for men's. You'll be playing with a ball that looks like this. Women's is a little different, a little bit softer. Most likely, then the ref will just know, and they'll give you the ball you're supposed to be playing with. Okay, so we're going to talk about the libero position. I wanted to give enough time to where we could cover all this because it is brand new to our league. So we're going to talk about that first. So as of right now, only the 2 varsity leagues will be using a libero. That's the men's varsity and the women's varsity. All the JV and D League players pay attention still, because hopefully all of you guys will make it into varsity someday, or we implement the rule throughout all the leagues eventually. So we'll start with the designation of the libero. Every team has the right to designate 2 liberos. You have to put them on the score sheet beforehand, before the game starts. And all liberos, oh, yeah. So you have to tell the score sheet, or the people running the score, your liberos. And so the libero that is on the court is called the active libero. And if there is another libero, then they would be called the second libero. And you can only have one on the court at a time. And I forgot to say this earlier, but nobody has to play with a libero. It's just an option that we're giving this year. So no one's required to have any. You also aren't required to have 2. You can have anywhere from 0 to 2. As far as the equipment goes, that's different for a libero. They do need to have a uniform that has a different dominant color than the rest of their team. So I know for the men's, then we'll be doing reversible black and white jerseys. And so if your team is in white, the libero would have to wear black, vice versa. For the women's, we're doing colored jerseys.
We're doing colors and liberos will be white.
Okay, so the women's will have colored jerseys, liberos will wear white. So any actions involving a libero, the libero is allowed to replace any player in the back row position, so they aren't allowed to play a front row position, but they can replace any of the 3 in the back row.
And then they'll just have to go.
They are restricted to perform as a back row player. They are not allowed to complete an attack hit from anywhere on the court or the free zone. Free zone is basically outside of the boundaries. And so they can't complete an attack hit if the ball is entirely above the net. So as soon as the ball is even barely below the net, the top of the net, then they are allowed to. But before that, then they aren't allowed to have an attack hit. They also cannot serve, block, or attempt to block. And a player may not complete an attack hit when the ball is entirely higher than the top of the net if the ball is coming from an overhand finger pass by a libero. That's basically like a set. So any player on your team cannot attack if they have an overhand set from the libero while the libero is in the front zone. So that's basically just the front row. So basically liberos cannot set unless it's from the back row. overhand. A libero replacement is not counted as a substitution, and they are unlimited, but there must be a completed rally between the two libero replacements.
You just
And
turned
so,
the camera off.
if you're going to sub a replacement, or you're going to have a new libero come out of the game, you have to have a rally in between before you can send them back in. That's unless a penalty causes the team to rotate and the libero moves into position 4. Then at that point, in position 4 is basically the front row. It's the first position of the front row. And so at that point, then the libero is not allowed to play the front row, so they do need to be subbed out. At the start of each set, the libero cannot enter the court until the second referee has checked the lineup and authorized a libero replacement with a starting player. So libero is allowed to start the game, but the starting lineup has to be on the floor, on the court. The libero, or the second ref, has to look at the lineup that you have, and then they can tell the libero, yes, you can go in the game.
They just had to
Other libero replacements must only take place while the ball is out of play and before the whistle for service. So they can't just run in the game mid-play. You have to wait till the play is over and before the ref signals for the next service. A libero replacement is made after the whistle, but before the ball was hit. They will still count the play, but the ref will give them a warning, and if they continue to do it, they will be penalized with a delay. And then, like I said, subsequent late libero replacements will result in the play being interrupted immediately, and you'll get a delay. And so the delay would be the team, so you get the delay, and then depending on the level of delay, then the ref will decide which team gets the service. The libero and the replacing player may only enter or leave the court through the libero replacement zone. I talked about that a little bit before. It's just in the back of each side. And libero replacements have to be recorded in the libero control sheet. So an illegal libero replacement can involve not having a completed rally in between the replacement, the libero being replaced by a player other than the second libero or the regular replacement of a player. So when you are a libero, then the regular player has to be the one who subs back in for them. And so the libero can't just be bouncing around between everybody. There has to be a set in between before they do that. And so it will be a illegal replacement if they either aren't replaced by the second libero or the player that they originally subbed out. And if they do illegally substitute, then if it's noticed before the start of the next rally, then the refs will just correct it, and the team will be called for a delay. If it's noticed after the service was hit, then it's going to be the same as an illegal substitution, and we'll get into that later. And then we have redesignation of a libero. So basically, if a libero is unable to play because of an ejection or an injury or an illness, then the libero will be declared by the team captain, who's the only one who can declare, unless you all have a coach. And so if you're a team that only has one libero, then the team captain can designate a new player who is not on the court currently or not subbed for the libero currently. They can designate that player to be the new libero. And then if there's two, then basically you just have that one libero. You also can designate another one, but I don't think we have enough players to do that if we are using two liberos. If the libero is not on the court when they're is declared unable to play, then they can be redesignated. But the libero cannot, if they can't finish, if they have to be redesignated because they can't play, they aren't allowed to come back in for the rest of the match. I assume that most of you guys know what a match is. It's just your 3 out of 5 or your 2 out of 3. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the libero discussion unless anybody has any questions. It is a new thing for our league, so
Can I just make a comment?
yeah,
Those are different rules than what the Vanguard High School girls just played.
yes.
And what the Vanguard boys are gonna play, just so anybody who's already played, because they follow a different set of rules.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll get to the rest of it now. So we're starting with the team captains. Before each match, then the captain will represent his or her team in the coin toss, and then they will also sign the score sheet. This needs to happen before the game is scheduled to start. Captains, make sure that you're responsible for, and make sure you're being on time to the games or early to the game so you can get all this done beforehand. We do have a really busy schedule, and so in order to make sure all the games finish on time, this has to happen before the games are scheduled to start. There's a lot of chairs up in the front if you guys want them, by the way. And then during the match, and while on the court, the team captain is the game captain. And so when the team captain, so there are specific rules for a team captain, and so while they're on the court, then they're also the game captain. When they are not on the court, then they need to assign somebody else to be the game captain. So that if you're subbing yourself out, then somebody on your team needs to be designated as the game captain. And when the ball is out of play, only the game captain is authorized to speak to the referees. Okay, and we're going to be really strict this year with that rule. We tried to implement it the past couple of years, but it hasn't really been followed all that well. This year, if you are not a game captain, don't talk to the referees in between rallies. In between sets is probably, we don't want that either. Just talk to your game captain and then let them handle it. A game captain can only talk to the ref between rallies and sets. They can't, yeah. Game captains don't be yelling at the refs in the play because they're kind of worried about other things. And all captains are required to read through Section 5 of the volleyball rulebook. So to win a match for the men's leagues, then a set is won by the team which first scores 25 points with a minimum of 2-point lead. So you have to win by 2. In the case of a 24-24 tie, then the play will be continued until one of the teams has a 2-point lead. And the match is won by the team that wins 3 sets. In the case of a 2-2 tie, then the deciding 5th set will be played to 15 instead of 25, but it still will have to be won with a minimum lead of 2 points. And for the women's leagues, pretty much the exact same, except for instead of best 3 out of 5, it'll be best 2 out of 3. Everything else is the same though. So instead of the 5th set being played to 15, it would be the 3rd set. So the coin toss, before the match starts, then the first referee will carry out a coin toss. He'll get both the captains together, and it will decide who gets the first service on the side of the courts that the teams will be playing on. If a deciding set is to be played, that's your game 3 or your game 5, then the refs will carry out another coin toss. And the toss, like I said, is taken in the presence of the 2 team captains. The home team will make the call, and the winner of the toss will choose either the right to serve or receive the serve, or the side of the court, and the loser will take the remaining choice. So for example, if my team wins the toss and I choose that I want the other team to serve, even though I let them serve, they still get to make the choice on which side they play on because I already made a choice. So captains will submit a starting lineup to the stat keeper. So this is kind of somewhat what the score sheet or stat sheet will look like, and these are the positions they'll play in. So your server, you're going to put in number 1. This dotted line up here is the net, and just so on like that. A rotational fault is committed when the service is not made according to the rotational order. It leads to the following consequences in order. The scorer will stop the play by the buzzer, and the opponent will gain a point on the next service. So make sure you guys are in your correct rotational order before the service takes place. The ball is considered in play from the moment of the hit of the service that is authorized by the first referee, and the server has 8 seconds to serve after the first referee's signal. The ball is considered in if at any moment of its contact with the floor, some part of the ball touches the court, and that's including the boundary lines. So even if most of the ball is outside the line, if the very, very edge of it touches the boundary line, that's in. The ball is out of play at the moment of the fault, which is whistled by one of the referees, in the absence of a fault at the moment of a whistle. So once you hear a whistle, or once a fault occurs, the ball is considered out of play. The ball is out of bounds when all parts of the ball which contact the floor are completely outside the boundary lines, or it touches an object outside the court, the ceiling, or a person out of play. It touches the antenna, the ropes, post, or the net itself outside of the side bands. It crosses the vertical plane of the net either partially or totally outside the crossing space, except in the case of Rule 10.1.2, or it crosses completely the lower space under the net. Team hits, 2 or 3 players may touch the ball at the same moment. When 2 or 3 teammates touch the ball simultaneously, it is counted as 2 or 3 hits, with the exception of blocking. If they reach for the ball, but only one of them touches it, it's counted as 1 hit, and a collision of players does not constitute a fault. So if you have multiple players touch the ball at the same time, then you're going to be counted for that many hits. Assisted hit. Within the playing area, a player is not permitted to take support from a teammate or any structure or object in order to hit the ball. At the first hit of the team, the ball may contact various parts of the body consecutively, provided that the contacts occur during one action. So you can't use your teammate to be able to jump higher, they can't boost you up so you can get a spike. And as long as, a service from the other team, if you double hit but it's all in one motion, then that is allowed. All the net. The ball that has crossed the net playing to the opponent's free zone, totally or partly through the external space, may be played back within the team hits, provided that the opponent's court is not touched by the player. The ball, when played back, crosses the net plane again, totally or partly through the external space on the same side of the court, or the opponent team may not prevent such an action. If the ball rips the mesh of the net or tears it down, the rally is canceled and replayed. So reaching beyond the net. In blocking, a player may touch the ball beyond the net, provided that he or she does not interfere with the opponent's play before the latter's attack hit. After an attack hit, a player is permitted to pass his or her hand beyond the net, provided that contact has been made within his or her own playing space. So if somebody's trying to set a ball right next to the net, you're not allowed to reach over the net and push it back down. It has to be, the only way you're allowed to reach over the net to hit a ball is if the other team has already attack the ball over to your side. Penetration under the net is permitted into the opponent's space under the net, provided that this does not interfere with the opponent's play. So your foot can touch the line, it can cross the line as long as your whole foot isn't over the line. But if somebody lands on your foot from the other team, it's going to be called as a fault. You need to make sure that you're not interfering with their play. And to touch the opponent's court with any part of the body above the feet is permitted, provided that it does not interfere with the opponent's play. So the main thing you need to watch for with this rule is your feet. Don't let your whole foot cross over. If your whole body crosses over other than your foot, that is okay, unless somebody lands on top of you or something like that. Contact with the net. Contact the net between the antenna during action of play, it's a fault. And that includes takeoff, hit, landing safely, ready for any action, everything. So even if your shirt barely hits the net on your way down from a block, it is going to be a fault. You're not allowed to touch the net at all.
So just to clarify, if the ball touches the ground and the play is dead, and so the whistle is blown, then you can touch the net after that. It is allowed as long as the whistle has been blown before you touch the net.
Yeah. So, for anyone who didn't hear, if the play is dead and the whistle has been blown, you are allowed to touch the net. As far as when it's in play, don't touch the net. So player faults at the net. A player interferes with play by touching the net between the antenna or the antenna itself during his or her action of playing the ball, using the net as a support or a stabilizing aid, creating an unfair advantage over the opponent by touching the net, making actions which hinder an opponent's legitimate attempt to play the ball, catching or holding onto the net. Any player close to the ball as it was played and who is him or herself trying to play it, it is considered the action of playing the ball even if no contact is made with it. So even if you try to hit the ball and you miss, it's still considered a play on the ball. The first service of the first set, as well as that of the deciding third set, is executed by the team that was determined by the coin toss. The first referee authorizes the service after having checked that the two teams are ready to play and that the server is in possession of the ball. The ball shall be hit with one hand or any part of the arm after being tossed or released from the hands. Attack hits. All action which direct the ball towards the opponent with the exception of a service and a block are considered as attack hits. During an attack hit, tipping is permitted only if the ball is cleanly hit and not caught or thrown. An attack hit is completed at the moment the ball completely crosses the vertical plane of the net or is touched by an opponent. And a back row player may also complete an attack hit from the front zone if at the moment of the contact the part of the ball is lower than the top of the net. But it is very hard to attack when the ball is below the net, because most likely your attack hit is going down, and if the ball is already below the net, it's going to go straight into the net. Blocking is the action of players close to the net to intercept the ball coming from the opponent by reaching higher than the top of the net, regardless of the height of the ball contact. Only front row players are permitted to complete a block, but at the moment of contact with the ball, a part of the body must be higher than the top of the net. That's just how it's considered as a block. Consecutive contacts with the ball may occur by one or more blockers, provided that the contacts are made during one action. So if you are blocking, you're not going to get called for a double hit if the ball hits both of your arms, as long as it was just in one action. In blocking, the player may place his or her hands and arms beyond the net, provided that this action does not interfere with the opponent's play. Thus, it is not permitted to touch the ball beyond the net before an opponent is executing an attack hit. So you can't reach over the net and block the set that they're trying to spike. Each team may request a maximum of 2 timeouts and 6 substitutions per set. Timeout requests must be made by showing the corresponding hand signal when the ball is out of play and before the whistle for service, and all requested timeouts last for 30 seconds. As far as the sequence, the interruptions are,
Can you block, say they're hitting second hit, can you block that? Or is that too late? Attack hit, blocked? Or is it considered a block if they're hitting the second hit?
once it's across the net, any part of the ball is across the net, then yes, you can. But if it wasn't an attack and it's not across the net, then no, you can't block it. But as soon as any part of the ball does cross the net, then you can. So for the sequence of the interruptions, requests for 1 or 2 timeouts and 1 request for substitution by either team may follow one another within the same interruption. However, the team is not authorized to make consecutive requests for substitution during the same interruption. So you can't have your guys go up to sub, the ref calls them in to sub, and then say, hey, I want you to sub real quick also. Once that first sub goes through, you have to wait at least 1 rally before you make another set or substitution. It is not permitted to request any regular game interruption after having had a request rejected and sanctioned by delay warning during the same interruption. So, if you want to sub and the ref tells you no, you can't ask to sub again before another rally goes through. Regular game interruptions may be requested by the coach or, in the absence of the coach, by the assistant coach or by the game captain, and only by them. So players cannot call timeout, only the game captain. I assume most of the teams won't have coaches, so it'll almost always be your team captain that needs to be the one that's requesting these. Substitution is the act by which a player, after being recorded by the scorer and accepted by the secondary referee, enters the game to occupy the position. And so, I know that in the past then, we have a lot of players that will be across on the other side of the court or somewhere else, not ready to go, and their team wants them to be subbed. The players that are sitting on the bench should be sitting on the designated areas for the team bench, and when it's time to sub, they need to go check in with the scorer's table, and then they need to go up and stand in the sub zone, which we talked about earlier. The arrows are pointing to it. A player of the starting lineup may leave the game, but only once in a set, and re-enter, but only once in a set, and only to his or her previous position in the lineup. And a substitute player may enter the game in place of a player of the starting lineup, but only once per set, and he or she can only be substituted by the same starting player. So your subs are linked to each other. So, for example, on my team, I'm on my team, Jacob White is on my team, and Jacob White is on the bench. Then, if he's linked to me at the start of the game, the only person you can sub in for is me. And the only person I can sub back in for is him.
Is there a fault for not being subbed?
Yes. If you're not in the sub zone, then you will, I believe it would be a delay fault.
So the fault would be just that you don't get to come into the game. But if they're continually delaying the game, then that would be delayed game.
Yeah, you will not be able to sub if you aren't in the sub zone. For any refs, don't let somebody clear across the court, try to flag you down and say, hey, I'm coming in. They need to be in the zone. They need to be ready to go when their team's ready for them. So exceptional substitutions. This is kind of the same as the libero redesignations we talked about. A player who is not able to continue playing due to an injury or illness or being expelled or disqualified from the match should be substituted legally. That's your first option. If they're already linked to somebody, you have to do it legally. If not, then if that's not possible, then the team is entitled to make an exceptional substitution. And so an exceptional substitution means that any player who is not on the court at the time of the injury, illness, expulsion, or disqualification may be substituted into the game for the player who was. And that injured player is not allowed to re-enter the match. So if you have to go out and have an exceptional substitution, you are not allowed to come back in for the rest of that match. And an exceptional substitution cannot be counted in any case as a regular substitution, but should be recorded on the score sheet as part of the total substitutions in the second match. So if you have to do this exceptional substitution, that will go against one of your 6 substitutions. An expelled or disqualified player must be substituted immediately through a legal substitution. If it's not possible, then that team does have the right to do an exceptional substitution. And if that is not possible, then the team will be declared incomplete. But hopefully we just don't have any of those this year or any year. So an illegal substitution is when a team has made an illegal substitution, or when a team has made an illegal substitution and the play has been resumed. The following procedure shall apply in this sequence. So the team first will be penalized with a point and service to the opponent. The substitution will be rectified, basically they'll fix it, and the points that were scored by the team at fault since the fault was committed are canceled. So any points, if the illegal substitution isn't caught for, let's say, 7 sets or 7 rallies, then all the points that your team scored, those points aren't going to count, but the points that your opponent scored, those are still going to count. Substitution must be carried out within the substitution zone. The substitution shall only last the time needed for recording the substitution on the score sheet and allowing entry and exit of the players. So make sure you guys are ready to go. Stand up, let the score table know, hey, I'm coming in. Go stand in the zone. Be ready for the ref when he's ready to wave you in. The actual request for a substitution starts at the moment of the entrance of the substitute players into the substitution zone ready to play during the interruption. The coach does not need to make a substitution hand signal, except if the substitution is for injury or before the start of the set. So as soon as they're in there, then the ref will know, okay, these guys want to sub in, they're going to come in on the next rally. If the player is not ready in the moment of the request, the substitution is not granted and the team is sanctioned for a delay. The request for substitution is acknowledged and announced by the scorer or second referee by use of the buzzer or whistle. The second referee authorizes substitutions. So all substitutions will take place on the side of the second referee, which will be right by the score table also. Except for the small courts. Those will have to be by the first or the head referee because there's not enough room on the other side to have a whole bench, team bench sitting. Improper request is improper to request any regular game interruption during a rally or at the moment of or after the whistle to serve by a non-authorized team member for a second substitution by the same team during the same interruption. After having exhausted the authorized number of timeouts and substitutions, and the first improper request by a team in the match that doesn't affect or delay the game, it will just be rejected by the referee. But it has to be recorded on the score sheet, and then any further improper request will constitute a delay. Different types of delays. An improper action of a team that defers resumption of the game is a delay and includes, among others, delaying regular game interruptions, prolonging interruptions after having been instructed to resume the game, requesting an illegal substitution, repeating an improper request, and delaying the game by a team member. So a delay warning and a delay penalty are team sanctions, and a delay sanction remain enforced throughout the entire match. So if you get a delay in the first set, then that's going to count throughout the whole rest of the match. All delays will be recorded on the score sheet, and so the first delay in the match is going to be a delay warning. The second and any delay after that, they will be hit with a delay penalty, and that would be a point to the other team and service to the other team. Any delay sanctions imposed before or between sets are going to be applied to the following set. So if your team's not ready to go and the ref is ready for you, maybe after everyone goes to get a drink or something, then he can call a delay on your team, and that'll count towards this next set you're about to play. External interference. If there's any external interference during a game, the play has to be stopped and the rally will be replayed. That doesn't mean if your team hits the ball into one of the fans, that's not considered interference, whether your player could have went out and got it or not. That's more like if a ball rolls on the court or a little kid runs on the court or something like that. Change of the courts. After each set, the teams change courts with the exception of the deciding set. In the deciding set, once the leading team reaches 8 points, then the teams will swap sides of the court. Your positions will remain the same though, where you're at in your lineup. And if the change is not made once the leading team reaches 8 points, it will take place as soon as the error is noticed, but the score will remain the same. So if the ref doesn't notice it, none of the players notice it, and you get to be like 12 to 10, at that point you will swap. The score is still going to be 12 to 10.
It's official.
So the refereeing team for a match is going to have a first referee, a second referee, 2 scorers. That's going to be, one of them will be in charge of the scoreboard and camera, the other will be in charge of the scorebook and libero tracking. Then you'll have 2 line judges. So the first and second referee are the only ones that are allowed to blow a whistle during the match. The first referee will give the signal for the service that begins the rally. The first referee is the one who's standing up on the platform. The first or second referee will signal the end of a rally if they're sure that a fault has been committed and they have identified what it was and who committed it. And so they may blow the whistle when the ball is out of play to indicate that they authorize or reject the team's request. Immediately after the referee's whistle, to signal the completion of a rally, they have to indicate with the official hand signals. If the fault is whistled by the first referee, he or she will indicate in order which team is going to serve, what the fault was, and the player that was at fault. That's if necessary. Respect the referees. They don't have to necessarily give you the player that did it. Referees respect the players. If they want to know what they did, don't be mean about it. Try to explain it to them. Everybody's trying to learn, so just make sure that everybody's being nice to each other. If the fault is whistled by the second referee, then he or she will indicate the nature of the fault, and then the player that was at fault, and then the team that will serve. So in this case, the first referee doesn't show the nature of the fault or the player at fault, but the first referee will determine or show which team is going to serve next. And in the case of a double fault, both referees will indicate in the order what the fault was, who committed the fault, and then the next team to serve will be indicated by the first referee. The first referee carries out his or her function standing on the referee stand. It'll be located at the opposite side as the score table and team bench. And their view needs to be about 50 centimeters above the net. We'll just try to hit that as close as we can. I don't think anyone's going to come out with a measuring tape. The first referee, they direct the match from the start till the end. They have authority over all the members of the refereeing team and the members of the teams. So the first referee, they're over the whole game. During the match, their decisions will be final, and they are authorized to overrule the decision of any of the other refereeing team members. That's if he notices that they made a mistake. He or she may even replace a member of the refereeing team who is not performing his or her functions properly. And I did want to talk about this a little bit. I know in the past I've seen a lot of mainly line judges. They'll be having a conversation with somebody else off to the side while they have a responsibility they're supposed to be fulfilling. If, as a head referee, first off, as a line judge, if someone's coming up trying to talk to you, then tell them, hey, this is important. I can't talk to you right now. I need to focus on the game. As a head referee, if you notice that, you need to stop whatever is happening and make sure you fix it before you go on. we need to make sure that everybody who has a responsibility for the game is making sure that they're focused. Also for the scoreboard, stat sheet, I've also noticed people being distracted. As far as I know, it's 1 hour of your night that you have to be committed to making sure that you pay attention. I think everybody can do that, so just try to make sure that you care about the other games that are going on, because you would probably want the same thing for your guys' game. So moving on, the head ref, they do have the power to decide any matters involving the game, including those that are not provided for in the rules. They shall not permit any discussion about his or her decision. So the referee does not have to have a conversation with you about why you made a call. Once you make a call, then move the game on. We can't be having a bunch of 5-10 minute conversations every single time someone doesn't agree with the call. Like I said before, we do have a pretty tight schedule. We have to just move the games along as fast as we can. Also, I wanted to bring up fans, especially on the main court now. The head referee is going to be right next to the bleachers, and I know that we have had some history of fans coming up and trying to talk to the refs. The fans are not allowed to talk to the refs at all while the game's going on. Well, throughout the whole entire match, fans should not be talking with the refs. So that includes all of you guys. When you're not playing in a game, you're considered a fan. Also, anybody who comes to watch you, just let them know they're there to watch. They don't need to get involved with what the refs are calling. That just makes the game take longer, and it's not allowed. So, at the request of the game captain, the first referee will give an explanation on the application or interruption of the rules upon which he or she has based the decision. So, if you do have a question, as the game captain only, you can come to the ref during an interruption and you can ask for an explanation. Nobody else will. If the game captain does not agree with this explanation and chooses to protest, he or she must immediately reserve the right to file and record this protest at the conclusion of the match. The first referee must authorize this right of the game captain. So if you really don't like a call, and honestly it probably shouldn't be that you don't like it, maybe the ref was just, maybe you just think the ref misunderstood the rule or something, you can file that, make sure it happens right after the match, and then we'll take a look at it. But you can't sit there and have an argument with the referee, even if you're the game captain. And the first referee is responsible for determining before and during the match whether the playing area, equipment, and conditions meet playing requirements. First referee responsibilities. They need to inspect, so this is before the match, they need to inspect the condition of the playing areas, the balls, and the other equipment. They need to perform the coin toss. They control the teams that are warming up. And then during the match, they can issue warnings to the teams and sanction misconduct and delays. First referee's other responsibilities, they decide the faults of the server and the positions of the serving team, the faults in playing the ball, the faults above the net, the faulty contact of the player with the net, the attack hit faults of the libero and back row players, the completed attack hits made by a player on a ball crossing completely under the lower space, or the lower space under the net, completed blocked by back row players, the ball across the net totally or partly outside the crossing space, basically anything. The head ref is responsible for calling it all. Secondary referee, they'll be standing outside of the playing court on the opposite side of the first ref, and they'll just be right next to the post. They are there to assist the first referee, but they do have their own range of jurisdiction. And so, if the first referee can't continue reffing the game, then the second referee will replace them. They may, without whistling, signal faults that are not within their jurisdiction. But they cannot make the first referee call them. They can't stop the game because of it. So they can signal for it, and then the first referee can stop the game. But if the first referee does not, didn't, or knows it didn't happen or whatever, they don't have to stop the game for it. They're in charge of the scorers. They supervise the team members that are on the team bench and report their misconduct. They control the players in the warm-up areas, authorize the game interruptions, control the number of timeouts and substitutions, and in case of injury, they grant a 3-minute recovery time and check the floor condition, and that the balls fulfill the regulations. So the second ref does a lot with more of the scoring table. Then they can also look for penetration into the opponent's court and the space under the net. Positional faults. They're responsible for positional faults. Faulty contact of the player within the net. Completed block by back row players. Contact of the ball with an outside object. Contact of the ball with the floor when the first ref is not in position to see the contact. Ball that crosses the net playing totally or partly outside the crossing space on his side of the court. Served ball and the third hit passing over or outside the antenna on his or her side. And at the end of the match, they check this and sign the score sheet. Line judges, if there's only 2 line judges, and that's what we'll have for the most part, only 2 will be scheduled for each game, then they will be at the corners that are closest to the right hand of each referee. If that makes sense to everybody. Basically, where you would typically serve the ball, the line judge will be on the opposite side. Line judges, they will signal in and out whenever the ball lands near the lines. The touches of out balls by the team that's receiving the ball. That's if the ball is flying out of bounds and someone on that team hits the ball before it goes out, they'll signal that. The ball that's touching the antenna, the served ball, and the third hit of the team crossing the net. Any player stepping outside of his or her court at the moment of the service hit, and the foot faults of the server. So I do see a lot of line judges, they aren't really paying attention to the server. You guys are responsible for watching that, making sure that they don't step on the line or over the line when they serve. And then any contact with the top 80 centimeters of the antenna on their side of the court by any player during their action of playing the ball, and the ball crossing the net outside the crossing space into the opponent's court or touching the antenna. And then at the first ref's request, the line judge has to repeat what signal they made. This is what the score sheet looks like, and I'm going to let Vanessa talk about this.
Okay, this one is a little bit different than last year, especially because we have the liberos. We have the full thing right here. So the first thing that you need to do, this is head refs. You need to be there at least 10 minutes early because this should be in 10 minutes early before the game starts. So if your game starts at 6:30, you need to have this done by 6:20, and that head ref side is your job. Okay, so event manager is going to be the head ref basically. So you just got to get your game started. You got to get warm-ups going. We kind of discussed letting each team have about 2 minutes to use the whole court. We'll probably go over it a little bit more because I know warm-up timers are really important and it's hard to get when you have people spiking it in. That's right. Okay, so you have at the top, then you have the court number, game number, or court. You can just say it's a small back court. You know, just, south court, north court, main court. Okay, game number, so if you have game number 1, 2, 3, pretty self-explanatory. Date, start time, end time, match winner. So you just do the captain's name of the game that won. I did borrow some teams. This isn't 100% accurate, so thank you for volunteering. I'm just kidding. So I'm using Brady's team that he did stats. So Brady's the event manager as well as the head referee. Secondary referee, just going to fill these out with names. And then on this one, this is the score sheet. This is not the substitution sheet or libero tracker. You're just going to have starting lineup and and timeouts, and you also have substitutions down here. You have a maximum of 6 substitutions per set, and he did go over this, and I really appreciate him going over everything. But when your substitution's coming up, go by the ref table instead of the 4. So you want to be ready, especially if you know that you substitute on a specific rotation. Go up by the ref table. Do not go into the sub zone until the play is completely dead, or you could be in the way. So just be careful about that. So yeah, we're going to be using initials because in volleyball typically you do numbers, but we don't have numbers this year. So you just initial somebody's name. So the first thing is it's going to say L for libero. So if your team has a libero, this is for just varsity. For JV, we'll have a little bit different forms. So just kind of ignore it. You're going to fill out the name, and you're going to have an initial. So this is for captains to fill out. You have an initial that you have to write down. I did use Ren's team because he has 2 RJs, so you have to pick who's going to be an RJ and who's going to be something else. So, also if you don't have a libero, you will have your 8 people. If you do have a libero, then you only have your 7 people. I remember most of it. So yeah, this is going to be the rotation that they go in. I have the rotation samples right here. You don't need to draw them. If you need to, you can. But like it's serving, it goes in serving order. So this is first person serve, second, third, fourth, so on. And that's how it's going to be on this. The ref is going to grab this paper and they're going to go and make sure, the secondary ref is going to grab this paper and make sure that everybody's in the rotation. If you're not in rotation, it can be a penalty or a fault. Okay? So, makes sense. Person 1 is in 1, person 2 is in 2, so on and so forth. And also on the liberos, they do not start on the court. They start in their libero replacement. They start in the libero zone, and then once the ref checks, hey, 1 is in 1, 2 is in 2, and so on, then they say, okay, libero, you can go ahead and go in, and you're going to trade your person. Liberos do not count as substitutions. They have unlimited subs. They do have to be done the right way, making sure that you're following your restrictions with that. But you do have 6 substitutions that are not liberos. And that'll be like, so right, I'll go over that in the next one. This is there to make sure that you track how many substitutions I do, but it will also be on the libero tracker. So I think that's it for over here. Oh, on timeouts. So I'll spend on timeouts, then you're going to write down the score when the timeout is called. So if Garrison calls a timeout at 12 to 13, then you just write down their score to the boys' game, if that makes sense.
Please don't write in Chinese.
Oh yeah. Chicken scratch is not tolerated. If you can't read your paper, then it's basically you're not doing your duty. So please make it legible. It's part of neglecting your duty to also be late, because if you hold up that game, you're not doing your duty right and you can be suspended. Please be on time. Please make sure these are filled out right. And just do your job.
I have a question for Vanessa. If you choose to, once you choose to use the libero, do you have to use them the whole night, the whole season, or can you use the libero as in game and not the next game?
Change the rotation.
Can you use the libero if and when you want?
It's per set. So if you have 1 per set, then you can have a different per set, or else you cannot play it libero per set.
Your
So,
lineup,
yeah.
Your lineup can change every set, but you have to wait till
Yes.
the set is over to change it.
Whatever you put on this paper needs to stay that way, and you also have your subs tied. We'll go over that in the next slide. But whatever you put on this paper, you have to stick to, especially your libero. If you don't want a libero next set, don't put it on the paper. Any other questions about this? Okay, this one's the substitution libero tracking sheet. Whoever does this does need to pay attention because liberos don't technically, they should be notified by the secondary ref, but they don't technically have to be. The substitutions do need to be announced. So secondary ref will stand there, official table's right behind you, and then if they're on this side of the team, then they'll come and be in the sub zone right here, and then you'll say, hey, so this is secondary ref, you'll say, hey, scores, this person is going in for this person is going in for this person. So that's going to work, so let's say Garrison's going in, or sorry. This is initial, so let's say this person goes in for this person, you're going to cross out this person, and put in this person's name, so I did open it, I can't reach. So, if you do 2 people at the same time, if you do 2 people at the same time, then it only counts as 1 substitution. Okay, so you can do 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, whatever. But as long as they're all there at the same time, then you're fine. Remember, if they're running off the bleacher, then they're not going to be allowed in. You need to be ready for your substitution when it's your substitution. Okay. The next one is the libero. Real quick, I'm going to go over, so let's say this person subbed in for this person, you're tied to this person. You're tied to this rotation, and you cannot go out of it. So if, I'm just going to say that, NP is in and JW goes in for NP, JW cannot go in for another player, and NP cannot go in for another player. The only person that has the right to do that is a libero, and they can go in for anybody as long as it's in the back row. Okay. Next one, we have our libero in here, initials, and then subs. You don't need to worry about the libero. You just have to make sure it's recorded. I probably should have had you, I guess it's fine. As long as their initials in there, then you're fine. But, yeah, so I just kind of went over the next one. So you'll cross out their name in different colors so they know it's a different substitution. So we'll have 2 colors of pens there. You're going to cross out their name, and then when they go in for the next person, and so on and so forth. You do have the sublines for here. I do want to make sure that these are docked off each time. And on this, do you mind going back real quick?
That's a question.
You have a question?
Yeah, so I know last time we kept track of the score when we subbed to make sure any faults, you can undo certain scores. I noticed on the sheet I didn't see anywhere to keep track of the scores when the substitution happens. Are we still doing that? Or is the ref just going to have to remember what the score is when the substitution happened in case there was a fault?
So, I don't know if this applies to you guys, but the reason we did that is because of the keeping track of the subs.
Yeah, I'll be adding that. Maybe I'll make some lines, but we expect a little bit more legitimate substituting this next coming season instead of just being like, oh, you should sub and this should sub. Like, we're going to have most likely legitimate information.
It's to create better equal time playing for everybody because there's.
So we are going
Okay, that's my bad. I didn't put that in there. So if one person, so if somebody subs next to them, then you'll have the score. It'll be your score or dash the other score. Write that down? So sorry. On this, the score sheet though, then you're going to make sure that this is filled out correctly. You will need it for the whole time. You're going to have the end of. Sorry, I'm trying to read this. You're going to have timeouts right here, and then you're going to have ending score right here. And then you'll have whoever won up here. So yeah, just make sure these are filled out, that they're correct scores, correct rotations, and then the other one's for substitutions and libero tracking. So please make sure that you're paying attention because the liberos will come in and out without being in and out sometimes, and it's not against the rules or anything. You just have to pay attention. And questions?
Substitution question.
playing time.
It was
Oh,
how
yeah.
many
Let's say.
So the minimum requirement is an average of 8 sets.
8
8
points.
rally.
8 points.
8 points per set. Alright?
I don't think
Yeah.
that's true.
I don't know.
Okay, we'll get back to that question.
We'll get back to the
So it's
question.
gonna be 8
It's
total.
overall for the match, but we will find out the right.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be 8 points between you. It's just a total of you and then 8 points being scored.
For the match.
Does that make sense?
And then will you just point out why there's 5 copies of it?
Oh yeah, so for the men, then they will be doing 5 matches. The women's will be doing 2 matches. And that sounds, heard a lot of
Best
giggles.
out of 3.
The girls will be doing best out of 3, but they have 2 games per night, averaging. Most of them will have 2 games. The guys only play 1 game. So it's pretty fair.
So just that they need to fill out every time there's a match.
Do you need to fill it out every time? So captains, you need to go back and fill out your rotation for match 1, match 2, match 3, some match 4, match 5. Does that make sense? So you can have different rotation, which I did do in. So I did that in this one. I made the rotation a little bit different. You can change it however you want. It just needs to be filled out, I think, 3 minutes. We don't need a long time. So once your set is over, or your match, just go back and fill out the next one so that we can stay on time because we do have a pretty fast schedule. I know this is a long time, a lot. Any other questions about that?
So, if say one team wins match 1 and 2, does the third match go to 50 or does it go to 25?
For the girls, then the third, because we only do best of 3, then the third match will be 15. But for boys, because you guys go to 5, then it's the fifth match.
The tiebreaker.
No, it's a tiebreaker. So
But let's say one team wins 2, that's what
it's so yeah, if you're tied between the 2 and 2, then it still goes to 25 and 40s.
So, yes,
Well, more sets.
so for anybody who didn't hear the question, the only set, the only sets that will be played to 15 would be the last set of a match that decided the winner if it was tied. So if it's tied 2-2, then your fifth one would go to 15. If you're up 2-0 and you're trying to win your third game, that one's still going to 25. Okay, so the minimum rallies per night for each player is 40 per night. Every player needs to play at least 40 rallies per night, and that'll be up to the captain to make sure that that happens.
Yeah. I was answering Dolly's question about how often they
Is
sub.
that for women's because their games are shorter or matches
It's still
matches
per
are
night.
shorter? So it's per night.
It's still per night. Either way, it still works out. Oh, Shane asked the question. Is that right? I think the question is, do they have to play 40? So if the player is a good sport and doesn't and basically tells you that they're okay not playing the 40, then that's fine. But we really would like everybody, all the captains, to make sure that the players get their time.
And anybody that misses, like if you miss the first game, then that kind of disqualifies you from, right? If you're
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So
you can't say I missed the first game, so I still get 40.
yeah, if you are, I'll let the captains know the exact rule, but it's a little different for the men and the women because the women are playing 2 games a night. If the player doesn't make it to the first game, that doesn't mean that they're entitled to 40 rallies for the next game. Basically they forfeit the right of like 20, I'm pretty sure, so you just take that half. But if you're late, like halfway into the game and you miss the first set, then I don't remember exactly what the rules are put down, but I'll let the captains know. Yes.
Is there going to be a copy of all the rules online?
Yes, there will be a copy of all the rules. Previously, we had all the rules and policies on the Discord server. We're moving away from Discord, and so we can let everybody know where that is posted. Right now, if you talk to me, I can get you whatever you need.
And we usually have a binder there on the main table.
That's right. There is a binder with all the rules and policies that will be at every game, and it's available for anybody that wants to read it.
Do you
Any other questions?
Did you have that one thing come up? The hand signals?
Okay, there were a couple things during the
It should have been before this.
during the training that I wanted to point out. So the rule where you're penetrating under the net, realize that it's not the part of your body that's touching the floor. It's actually the plate. So going straight up. If my foot's like this, but it's still crossed, and the line would basically my foot would be in it if it was touching the ground. That still counts as a line fall. Does that make sense? No. If the entire foot crosses the plane, then it is a line fall. So it's not just the ground, it's the plane, and it's a straight up and down line. And then, are you guys putting those?
Drop the red ones up.
Alright. So here are the officiating hand signals. I know we gave you guys the QR code to the quiz a little bit early, so if everybody can just pay attention real quick. Where can you find these?
Well,
There's an official one in the rule book.
Is that not right?
It's the one we mentioned earlier, 2021 to 2024. I don't think we have a copy yet, but there will be one in the binder.
Okay. So I would recommend for any ref, go into the rule book, find this table, figure out what all the hand signs are, and if you don't happen to know them in the game, check the binder, they'll be in there. I can go over all of them if you guys want, but it might be easier if everyone just goes and learns it themselves. So, like I said before, I know we gave you that code a little bit early. We do have one more part of the training, so if everybody can pay attention real quick, I think Carl is going to go over the camera training real quick.
Mind if I mention one thing?
In the quiz, when you get to it, I just have this question right here. In the quiz, then it says, can the libero play in the front row? What we mean is, can they rotate into the front row? They can be up there during the volley or during the set, but they cannot set. Remember, they cannot set overhand. They cannot attack, so they're not usually up there. They can be up there, but they cannot rotate up there. Is that correct?
Why does it say that libero?
They can.
But they can allow someone to step underhand.
They can do a fuck, yeah, in the front row, but they can be in the front row. They cannot set overhead, right? So it'd be a bump, and they cannot attack. So there's not a whole lot of purpose for being up there.
They can set from the first step, but as long as they're not attacking.
You don't want it very
Yeah, they can set it. So this is a nice little technical difficulty video. So if it's a first hit, they can set it. But an attack cannot follow that hit, so you'll have to be really careful with that. Because a lot of times sets do turn to attacks right after. But yeah, we just wanted to clarify that they cannot rotate into the front. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to try and rush through this last portion because it doesn't affect everyone here. But yeah, for those who don't know, we've actually been streaming this presentation, so it'll be available at ACCS Basketball on YouTube for reference. Back there. We're still trying to work it out to get the perfect quality. I didn't trust you to check that out. Also on the same YouTube channel. But that is what this next part is about, is the camera training. This is only going to be happening on the main court, and mostly the guys here will probably have to pay attention to this. So we'll be streamed, archived on YouTube. It'll be public, and so I would like to make sure to stress that it is important that everyone uphold gold standards. This applies to everybody. Because even more with me about broadcast to the world, those streams will be public, as they have been for a bit. Cameras and laptops have mics on, and so any profanity, slurs, or misconduct of any kind won't be tolerated. It can not only get you in trouble, it can get the league in trouble, and also the people running the school in trouble. So be aware of that. So anywhere you see a camera, this one is actually off now because it died a bit ago. But there's no that you're being recorded, especially if the light is blinking. If you're not comfortable being streamed or recorded, you are kind of out of luck unless you are running the stream. But there is an opportunity we'll talk about later where you can mute mics, you can turn off cameras if you're uncomfortable. We have an opportunity to be able to do commentary during the game. So I don't know if anyone's seen the stream for like basketball where they're holding their phone or the camera and everything like this. No, it's going to be set, but there's going to be a camera pointed at commentators. It's optional, it's not required, but it's something you should probably be aware of for those who are scheduled for camera. Setup for the stream, I personally, my name is Carl, I'll be setting up everything for the stream before every game. This is for the guys and the girls. And so no one will have to worry about setup. If you can help me out, that would be great if you get there early. Just keep in mind that I'm short. If you put a camera up high, I won't be able to get it. So keep that in mind. Yeah, so the hardware used for the stream is my personal laptop, my personal iPad, my personal router, and the cameras are actually owned by LDCC Volleyball. The cameras, they can take a beating, but they can't take abuse. So I ask if you're handling them or aiming for them with a volleyball, please don't, that you take care of them and all the hardware here, because I do actually depend on my laptop. So thank you in advance for that. The first thing you need to know about the streams is they have a delay of about 4 or 5 seconds. And so as you're running the stream, then if that's jarring for you, that's just kind of how it works. That's due to network connectivity and Bluetooth, it's latency. I'm kind of running through this, so I know everyone's trying to get out of here. The camera's placement, now that I've learned a couple of things here, we're going to have to adjust where the cameras go, but they're essentially going to go, one's going to be pointing at the court, and the other two are going to be on the net. And so we'll actually be able to do instant replays of the, instant replays with a delay of 4 or 5 seconds on the net. And we're going to have to get a rule in there for a challenge, but you'll essentially have 1.5 minutes to call a challenge to review a replay. We can adjust that delay at some point if it's too long, but yeah, that's kind of what the tech allows us right now. Like I said, everything is set up, will be set up beforehand. There will be some troubleshooting, probably. Right here, there's supposed to be a camera pointed. That didn't really work out this time. But everything should be set up. Let's see. Yeah, I'm kind of running through these here, but if you want to ask questions, go ahead and throw them up. We have a couple of scenes. We're using OBS. If anyone's familiar with that, we're using OBS to run the stream. Any thing like is there? We're not doing challenges. Very good. That was a different draft. Sorry, no challenges. You'll just be able to see the net live. So that's pretty awesome. Maybe just check my notes. Each camera has mics on them. We have that. You'll be able to mute them and change them if you are a camera operator. And I think for I don't know if the girls assigned camera operators. They did? Yeah, so there's a couple of things we need to adjust on that. If you need to troubleshoot on something, don't stop the game to do so, even if something looks broken. The refs need their time. They need to be able to focus on the game. Don't try to grab the camera that is right in front of them. Don't try to change batteries or anything like that. But there's some documentation on if they'll have in front of you on the iPad to be able to run through some setup. It's just run through the setup. If something breaks too bad, you call me over. If I'm in a game, then just put it to a specific scene. Scenes in the documentation. Just let it go. This is other than the presentation. We're in that scene right now, live. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I ran through everything there. I want to announce that there is going to be some live training for the cameras for the guys at the first couple of girls' games. So anyone who's specifically been assigned as a camera operator will be, I'll be setting up a live training to be able to run the stream, and I'll be there to run that training. I think that's everything I have. Are there any questions, or do we need to wrap it up?
Excuse me.
Great. Yeah. Turn over to yours.
All right. So just a couple other things. I know a lot of you guys saw that quiz QR code. That quiz is how we're going to take roll for this training. You'll also see on there you have to get a 20 out of 25 to pass. Any player, if he doesn't pass that quiz, will not be allowed to play in the games. So we'll try to go through, give the captains a list of their players by tomorrow that were not able to pass it. But just keep that in mind. Also, if you don't take the quiz, we'll assume that you were not at the training and you will have to take the training. Sure. Can we go back to the document? Okay. I believe that's, got one more.
Alright guys, last thing. Just to let everybody know, hopefully your captains have already let you know, this year we are requiring jerseys. And so it's gotta be, for the men, it's black and white reversible jersey, and you have to have black shorts. Okay, nothing, no crazy details or anything on shorts. James?
Black pants work too. It's their
Black athletic pants are fine. Yeah, as long as they're athletic. They can't be like Levi's or anything. And then for the women, I think I already told you they're getting the shirts for the girls, but it still is the same thing for your pants. Got to be black shorts or pants that are order standard. So, anything else on that note?
We'll post it. We'll share it.
Okay, anybody that ordered the jerseys, they're supposed to be coming in on Tuesday. So I'll have those on Wednesday.
Okay, and we'll also try to have the season schedule out, hopefully by tomorrow. Hopefully. Any other questions anybody has? All right, we'll go ahead and close.